What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. As always, we're talking a brand new movie or show on Netflix, and today's series is Clickbait. Is this show good? We're going to talk about it. So, Nick Brewer is a loving father, husband, and brother who one day suddenly and mysteriously disappears. Then a video appears on the internet of a badly beaten Nick holding a card that says, "I abuse women. At 5 million views, I die." Now, is this a threat or a confession? Or both? As his sister and wife rush to find and save him, they uncover a side of Nick that they didn't know existed. And this 8-episode series is told from a different point of view in each episode. Clickbait is a compelling high-stakes thriller that explores the ways in which our most dangerous and uncontrolled impulses are fueled in the age of social media, revealing the ever-widening fractures we find between our virtual and real-life personas. So a lot of implications that come with a show like this, and one that does show us how a concept like this can work a lot differently in 2021, how things change because of the digital landscape, and how that is slowly molding into something new and different. And Clickbait was a show that intrigued me because this idea, first of all, is interesting, and then showing the implications of what everyone on social media can do to impact not only his fate, but the fate of a lot of characters that maybe have relationships with him can be in general. And you see the heartbreak that comes from that. Of course, the family members and those that know and love Nick as Nick, not as what this video is portraying him as at the beginning of the series. Well, there's a lot of heartbreak that comes from that because every view on this video, and even our characters at the beginning, they're watching it multiple times just to get an idea as to where he is. But every time you view it, this clock starts to slowly count down because at 5 million views, well, the card says it, he dies. So this show immediately hooks you with that premise, and you're faced with the idea of what do you do in this situation? And then once he's gone, and we're all trying to figure out with our characters where he is, why he is put in this situation, you in your mind as a viewer, well, you're starting to single people out that we know of and how they have to do with this, and if anyone that we know in the first couple of episodes have anything to do with it at all. And that's what the show does a good job of, is unraveling this mystery, but like I said, through different perspectives in each episode. And I was a bit kind of caught off guard at the beginning because I'm like, oh, okay, it's from the perspective of his sister. And then the second episode is from the perspective of the detective. And then you get the wife, the brother, the son. And then the final episode kind of culminates all of these ideas where you've been getting little pieces of the puzzle along the way, and then you finally get your answers. Was every answer portrayed to the audience as something that makes complete sense at first glance? I won't say yes. I do still have a couple of questions about that ending and how certain things added up or measured up with certain characters, but the story does a nice job of unraveling through different perspectives, and that makes Clickbait in its entirety a more interesting show on top of an already interesting premise. We can also talk about the cast here, a couple of subplots that were really interesting in themselves. Now, at points, we did explore maybe a bit too much about certain characters to where it started to take away from what we were really focused on, and that's the mystery. So did this show have to be 8 episodes in its entirety? Is the runtime something that takes away from the experience? I will admit there were a couple of problems throughout episodes to where I said, let's get back to this because this is more interesting than what you're giving us right now. But the acting is solid nonetheless, and that still kind of reels you into these storylines. Phoenix Ray plays our detective here, who is dealing with his own sort of struggle within the confines of where he works. So that comes into play along with him trying to solve this mystery, as well as, I'd say, our two main players that are, related to Nick, and that is Zoe Kazan as Pia and Betty Gabriel as Sophie. And each of these characters, they have their own secrets. Sometimes it's something that may not be the worst thing ever, but it's still a secret nonetheless, or they're hiding something from our detective and people that are trying to solve the case that always comes back to bite them. And they do a good job of setting this up at the beginning, especially when you're going into that third episode saying, oh, so that's not all that there is, because early on something happens and I didn't know it would happen that quickly, but I said to myself, I'm not entirely sure if this was the best decision. So how are you going to handle that sort of resolve as we continue through the show? And they did a good job of picking up the pieces there, so I was impressed. But at the same time, I do feel like certain reveals early on took away from the magic that could have came, 5 to 6 episodes in instead of 2 to 3 episodes in. So I do wish they would have held off on that just a bit longer. But Betty Gabriel does a good job of playing this subtle and subdued character, one that always feels like she's in control, even though when you start to learn more things about Sophie Brewer, there are more aspects to her character than you feel like there are early on. And then you have Zoe Kazan, who delivers a very emotional, she's a headstrong character, so she's determined to find the answers, even though sometimes it's not necessarily her place to do the things that she's doing, but you understand her temperament and why she feels this way, because her brother is literally on this screen saying at 5 million views I die. So yeah, you would probably be freaking out too. And that's kind of what's keeping us on our toes, is with every view and every time we get a new element to this video series, you're sitting back going, okay, what's going to happen? Why is he here in the first place? And is he really at fault? Because eventually we start to see things that tell us, okay, yeah, he is in the wrong, but is he really in the wrong? And those are the questions that we're faced with a show like Clickbait. Now, is the story progression as great as it could have been? Again, sometimes scenes are prolonged, and at times the pacing sort of got in the way of my enjoyment. And I do wish there were elements about this show that would have felt more realistic, right? So there's a scene where the sister is walking up. They think they found something, but it turns out they didn't really find anything. But everyone is out with their phones. And this show is a play on social media, clearly with a title like Clickbait. But a moment like that felt so unrealistic because not really anyone showed sympathy for our characters at that moment. Everyone's just kind of filming, and I get it. We've seen examples of that in real life to where there's not a lot of sympathy shown, but everyone was doing a thing that felt unrealistic. And there were a few elements about the social media that didn't feel entirely real, and that also took away from the enjoyment. So I do wish it would have felt less fictional, even though there's a great sense of realism in other scenes. It doesn't take away from the thrills of the way that the series progresses, but it's just a criticism. It's clickbait, people. So before I give you guys my score for Clickbait, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me and supporting this channel, and let me know that you like these Netflix reviews, and if you enjoyed this one, be sure to drop your thumbs up. That tells me you want more things like it. Clickbait uses its unconventional storytelling technique and great cast of characters to take viewers on a familiar but thrilling journey. So again, we've seen shows like this before and very similar plot lines, but the structure is what kept me engaged here. And like I said, cast of characters, so I'm going to 70% for this series on Netflix. 8 episodes is definitely one that I think people are going to be talking about. Maybe good, maybe bad, but at least it's one that will stick with you in a way. So I've got to give the show kudos there. Thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know how you feel about this series down below. If it was as enrapturing as I thought it was at points. So appreciate it big time. Come back, more Netflix reviews and more reviews in general. He's All That. That's coming tomorrow, so you don't want to miss it.